Okay, time for the book. We have a very special book this time.
Oi,
We just ordered it. Just barely received it a couple of days ago. Um, the Catechism of the Council of Trent.
but wasn't that outmoded? Wasn't that replaced?
No. Uh,
Good answer. No. Absolutely. No.
so, hardcover, very beautifully done, published by Baronius Press. Um, highly recommend this press, by the way. Never had the chance to talk about them. Very hardcore trad. You know you're a hardcore trad when you publish 10 different versions of the Dewey Rames Bible. Literally. 10 different. I'm not
Yeah.
joking. BaroniusPress.com. Check them out. But anyhow, so I've wanted to get the Catechism of the Council of Trent for probably over a year, actually. But it hasn't really been readily available. It's just been recently kind of popular, and I've delved a little bit into it. And there are some differences that really jump out at you compared to the Catechism of the Catholic Church. One of them, well, I'll show you. I'll show you some of these pages I've marked. Let's see here. Whoops. Nope. Here we go. Baptism made obligatory after Christ's resurrection. Doesn't really beat around the bush. There's very sharp, precise, clear language that communicates the fullness of the Catholic faith in this book. Do you have anything to say? Do you have anything to say?
Yeah, there's another difference between the Catechism of Trent and the Catechism of the Catholic Church, and that is in the manner of its authority. Because most of the Catechism of Trent, not all of it, but almost all of it, most of it, the vast majority of it, are really just quotations from the conciliar definitions.
Right.
But the Catechism of the Catholic Church is a compendium of varying quotations, some of which, they come from differing levels of solemnity. And then some of them aren't quotes at all. It's just there with no attribution. Now, there's a similar work called the Compendium of the Social Teaching of the Church, which has an interesting caveat in its own foreword, which is that the documents quoted have varying levels of solemnity, and that has to be taken into account when evaluating them. Well, they don't say that in the Catechism of the Catholic Church, but it's true in the one, it's true in the other. Few of them have the same level of solemnity as the Council of Trent. Now, why do I mention this? Because you brought up baptism. The sad truth of the matter is that the Catechism of the Council of Trent is flatly contradicted by the Catechism of the Catholic Church. Don't take my word for it. Read them side by side. Now, what are we to make of this? Well, Catechism of Trent simply quotes the Council in this area. Catechism of the Catholic Church doesn't quote anybody. It just says what it says. And a catechism by itself has no real solemnity at all. So, the Catechism of the Council of Trent, where it repeats Trent, is infallible because it's repeating infallible teaching. That's an important thing to bear in mind, important distinction. It's like Humanae Vitae, the encyclical of Paul VI condemning artificial birth control. People would say, well, an encyclical is infallible. Very true. But you can repeat infallible teaching in it, if you see the distinction.
Right.
So if the Council of Trent, if the Catechism of Trent was just another catechism versus the Catechism of the Catholic Church on this or any other point, if they disagreed with each other, well, then you'd have to sort of shrug and say, well, who knows? You don't have to do that here because you're basically pitting an unsubstantiated, unattributed expression in a catechism against a quotation from a council of the Catholic Church, an ecumenical council, which is, it doesn't get more infallible than that when it's explicitly dogmatizing. So, if you're asked, I mean, I can't speak for anyone else, but for myself, if you demand of me, do you follow the Catechism of Trent on this point or the Catechism of the Catholic Church? I'd have to say the Catechism of Trent. Now, don't think though that means the Catechism of the Catholic Church is without value. It's not without value. It has a great deal of value. There are all sorts of useful things that are quoted in it from sources that we don't generally get, the Eastern Church, and so on and so forth. It also addresses things that the Catechism of Trent does not address, and very often in a more or less authoritative manner. But inevitably, when the two disagree, the CCC's side is not authoritative at all.
Okay. One other.
Oh, so let me
Okay.
just say, in practical terms, I would make myself familiar with the Catechism of Trent first, and then go on to use the Catechism of the Catholic Church, using that of Trent as a corrective. In other words, where the Catechism of the Catholic Church either does not contradict that of Trent or deals with areas that Trent does not, it's great. So it's, again, I don't say throw it out, but I do say learn Trent first. The Trent Catechism has the very basic stuff every Catholic absolutely needs.
Well, one of the things that really jumped out at me in delving in this catechism is that it doesn't just spell things out clearly, concisely, sharply, but it actually makes recommendations of what the faithful should do. For example, it doesn't just say baptism is essential, important, and everything else, and then just leave you to do the math on it, on how to approach baptism and the execution of it. It actually makes recommendations for the faithful. Let's see here. Baptism of infants should not be delayed. Stop messing around. Pretend like baptizing your child is the most important thing you could possibly do for your child. Pretend. You know?
Yeah, and pretend that feeding him is also important. And imagine, that changing him is a good thing too.
So I like the recommend. I like that it spells it out for you that you should be treating it in this manner. So it's got a lot of useful things. Again, we've just received this, so I haven't been able to delve and examine it as much as I'd like for the show so far. But I can kind of tell that this is one of the most important tools you can have for the Catholic faith.
Absolutely.
So if you don't have your faith wrapped up in a nice little tidy package and there's just some stuff hanging out and you need to look up some stuff, grab this book. Okay. I really do think the way it's outlined that you're going to find what you were looking for. So.
And as I say, you needn't throw out the CCC, but read this first. This is foundational.